Leading experts on nuclear disarmament met in Switzerland today under the auspices of the International Luxembourg Forum on Preventing Nuclear Catastrophe. The conference seeks to identify features in nuclear development programs which clearly suggest the intention to develop nuclear weapons. One of the delegates at the conference is Professor Ariel Levite, head of the Bureau of International Security at the Ministry of Defense and a former Deputy National Security Advisor. Levite told IBA's Dennis Zinn that, contrary to public opinion, he believes the actions of the International Atomic Energy Agency and the United Nations Security Council are hampering Iran's race to develop nuclear capability.
I think the IAEA has been doing its job in an exceptionally skillful manner, but one has to be aware of what the IAEA is. It's essentially, at the end of the day, a professional organization which is doing safeguarding and investigations, and it has been doing this impeccably, I think, particularly in recent years. So I don't think they've been impotent. They've been doing their job, and they've been warning the international community repeatedly that they cannot ascertain the peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program. So they had done their job. They've been trying to convince the Iranians to open up and provide them more access so they can ascertain the peaceful intentions of Iran. They haven't succeeded, so they have reported that to everybody, including to the Security Council. So I give the IAEA generally high marks on those counts. With respect to the Security Council met a couple of times, imposed on Iran some fairly severe sanctions. Some added ones came along as a result of US or EU actions and those of some others. So I don't think that they have been completely impotent. The question is, was this enough to turn the Iranians around and agree to suspend, reassure, and so on? The answer is not to date. One question is, will politics in Iran make a difference after the Iranian elections, when things from an Iranian perspective settle down and the leader would be able to free himself, hopefully, to deal with this issue? It's far from certain that that will be the case. If that were not to be the case, then clearly I expect more pressure to mount on the United States, but also on Israel, to step up the pressure on Iran and perhaps down the road to take more decisive action.
Is there still time?
I think there is time, but as the Americans are fond of saying, time is not infinite. And I think the more progress the Iranians are making, and the more they refuse to cooperate with the Security Council, the IAEA, and so on, or reach an agreement with the six-party talks, then more time, the time available to reach a peaceful settlement, I think, is diminishing.
In another track, regarding Syria, how do you see Russia's recent role in the area?
Well, I think one can have some sympathy for the role Russia wants to have a diplomatic outcome. I think one has to be rather critical of the Russian decisions to supply highly unsettling weapon systems to Syria in general and under the current circumstances in particular, both because they would be put to bad uses by Assad, and they may be put to even worse uses by people who take over from him or feel that because he's adapted to them, they can actually claim those who have those capabilities, as has already been the case with Hezbollah in the past. So I think that the Russian policy is not completely outrageous, but some aspects of it are mind-boggling.
How does the bolstered Russian military presence in the Eastern Mediterranean affect Israel and other players in the area?
Well, I don't think that the military presence as such has significant relevance to Israel as such. I think Russia has all along had military bases in Syria. I think it wants to keep them there. It wants to have an opportunity to evacuate its assets from Syria if Syria were to fall into the wrong hands. It wants to dissuade others from stepping in militarily into Syria. So for all of those reasons, I mean, whether it's a safety net or a gunboat diplomacy, I don't see that as an immediate menace on Israel. In fact, to the extent that it might also be used to keep Assad in line, that may not be entirely bad altogether. I think the weapons sales and the military presence are two very separate issues.